Hi, my name is Laura Muka. I write for children and I also specialise in writing about relationships and attachment theory for adults. Attachment theory is the most significant theory of human relationships in the last century. It's an increasingly popular topic and you might already have read, watched or listened to something about it. It's used by psychologists, psychotherapists, social workers, teachers, nurses, parents and more. But research suggests that while many professionals are familiar with the word attachment, they don't know all that much about what the theory and research actually say, even when they're claiming to base their work on it. And in popular writing, it's prone to being oversimplified or incorrect. But when it's understood correctly, it can explain how and why we see things, pay attention, manage our emotions, remember, think, and reflect when it comes to close relationships, both in childhood and adulthood. So, what is attachment theory?
The attachment theory argues that a strong emotional and physical bond to one primary caregiver in our first years of life is critical to our development. If our bonding is strong and we are securely attached, then we feel safe to explore the world. We know that there is always that safe base, which we can return to any time. If our bond is weak, we feel insecurely attached. We are afraid to leave or explore a rather scary-looking world because we are not sure if we can return. People who are securely attached are said to have greater trust, can connect to others, and as a result are more successful in life. Insecurely attached people tend to mistrust others, lack social skills, and have problems forming relationships. The long-term effects of our attachment in the early years are well documented. Using the theory, researchers at Minnesota University were able to predict already at age 3 if a child would drop out of high school with 77% accuracy.
Attachment theory has been proven in many scientific studies. It's now used in fields such as psychology, psychiatry, paediatrics and even neuroscience. The key is to practice secure attachment behaviours. Now, I always think it's helpful to look at an example, so let's look at Emily. When Emily was a child, her parents were attentive, nurturing, sensitive and loving. They were responsive to her needs and she learned she could rely on her parents whenever needed. As an adult, Emily values emotional intimacy and believes in open and honest communication. She trusts her partner and feels secure in knowing that she can depend on him for support. Emily's secure attachment style also extends to her friendships. She fosters deep and meaningful connections with her friends. She is supportive and reliable, always there to lend a listening ear or a helping hand. Emily's secure attachment style enables her to form and maintain healthy relationships. She has a positive self-image and feels worthy of love and care. Her secure attachment style allows her to navigate relationships with a sense of confidence, emotional openness and trust in others. As a child, Mark's parents were inconsistent and unpredictable. His parents were sometimes available and attentive, and other times they were neglectful and dismissive. As a result of this inconsistent parenting, Mark developed a fear of abandonment. So as an adult, he seeks reassurance and validation within his romantic relationships. He tends to worry about the status and security of his relationships, often overanalyze situations and seeking excessive reassurance. Mark has a strong desire for closeness and intimacy. He also fears rejection and tends to be overly sensitive to any signs of distance or disinterest. He struggles with trusting his partner's intentions and always feels the need to test her commitment. In his friendships, Mark exhibits similar behaviours. He has a constant need for reassurance, seeks frequent contact and fears rejection. Despite his anxious attachment style, Mark genuinely desires close and secure relationships. But his fear of abandonment and need for constant reassurance creates challenges in maintaining healthy boundaries. Rachel's parents were emotionally unavailable. They didn't provide comfort or support and were dismissive of her emotional needs. As a result, Rachel developed a strong desire for independence and self-reliance. As an adult, she's had a few romantic relationships, but she always felt suffocated by the emotional intensity and expectations of her partners. In her current romantic relationship, Rachel tends to keep her emotions guarded and avoids getting too close. She prioritises her own independence and personal space, often seeking alone time to recharge and maintain a sense of autonomy. When her partner expresses a desire for emotional closeness, Rachel feels uncomfortable and dismisses her partner's emotional needs. And when she experiences her own emotional challenges, she prefers to deal with them by herself. Rachel believes that relying on others will only lead to disappointment and loss of freedom.
It's helpful to learn about attachment theory and understand that there may be reasons why we behave the way we do in relationships, and also to work on them if we want to. But when it comes to figuring out your own attachment pattern, it's seriously easy to get it wrong or oversimplify. The attachment patterns that we develop in childhood can last for a long time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those responses are fixed forever. If our important person changes the way they respond to us, our expectations can change. And the same is true if a new important person emerges who is able to provide us with a safe haven. As adults, we can also consciously choose to change our path. Although that change probably won't be instant, we might change by learning about relationships, seeing a therapist, or developing a close relationship with someone who has had a secure attachment pattern themselves. So what have we learned? Attachment theory is an umbrella term, and even though the word attachment is used to mean different things, it's really confusing, and that's why a lot of people are confused by it. But something that most researchers agree on is that humans need a safe haven from the cradle to the grave, whether that's in the form of a parent, teacher, aunt, grandparent, neighbour, psychologist, partner, or best friend. It's all about having a safe haven in times of crisis. And when we believe that we have that, we are free to explore and learn about the world.
Ta-da. Okay, so we're all good. We're all going home. Thanks so much, everybody. We got it all figured out. How does that feel? Hi, first of all, to Peter and the team that put the video together, let's thank them and give them a big thank you. I am going to introduce you two in just a minute, but I was just handed a donation update. We are at $13,500. So that QR code on your table, if you're looking, you're thinking, exactly, let's give them a big round of applause for donating. I can't help but notice that applause started from where the staff is. So this is very important to them. But get in there and donate because it makes a huge difference. So attachment theory, we've got two experts with us here. I'm going to introduce both of them, and then we're going to go into a conversation. I'm going to talk with you first, Ray. Welcome back. It's nice to have you here. How have you been?
Doing well.
Doing well. Very good. Sherry, stand by. I'll be right with you. Let me tell you about Rochelle. A lot of us know her. Dr. Paperny did her doctoral training focused on attachment theory. And in addition to being a mom of two children who are now grown, Rochelle has over 30 years experience with adolescents and their families, worked in the field as a researcher, university professor, consultant, speaker, registered psychologist, and partner with Lionheart. Let's welcome Dr. Rochelle Paperny to the stage. Hi, Rochelle. And now we have a new contestant here on The Price is Right. Dr. Sherry Madigan did her doctoral training focused on parenting, child mental health, and attachment theory. She has years of clinical experience with children, adolescents, and their family. And in addition to being a mom of 4, age 8 to 16, she's also professor and Canada Research Chair of Child Mental Health and Wellbeing in the Clinical Psychology Program at the U of C. Also, I just read this, authored over 200 250 publication and is ranked among the top 25 most productive academic psychologists worldwide. How about that? Let's get some stuff done. Let's hear from you. Thanks for being here, Sherry. What I found, and you both know this, I'm the insecure dad who comes to this luncheon every year and goes, what am I doing? And when I watched that video, I thought it again. I thought, remember sleep parenting? I don't know how much actual attachment I was doing when I had John just screaming his face off in the other room and ignoring him. And that's when he was a kid. He's 14 now. Is it blown? Is it done?
Yeah, my fear for all of you and people in the audience is you see that and you think, oh no, I'm hooped. I missed that point. And they talked about the critical period in early childhood, and if you did the sleep training, did I mess them up? And first of all, there's 2 points I want to make. One is get over the shame and blame, because that only gets in the way of seeing your children right now. And the most important point is one of hope, which is that attachment remains plastic throughout the lifespan. Meaning, yes, there's a sensitive period for its formation in early childhood, but it continues to be needed and change throughout the lifespan if we have new experiences. So if you started off with an insecure attachment, there's a possibility that always remains to establishing what we call earned secure, which is having new disconfirming experiences of safety and really healing from that insecure attachment. So it's hopeful for your concerns that you might have about your kids, but it also means, Dave, that there's hope for you as well. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is a great day already. Thank you so much, Ray. Sherry, I want to jump ahead. So sometimes I think, okay, attachment means, well, I've given my kids food, clothing, shelter. I drive them to lacrosse and to dance and to soccer. Is that enough? Is that attaching? Am I doing it right?
So those are like functional aspects of parenting, the practical components of getting kids here, there. Maybe when you get them, commit to getting them to soccer all the time, they might be sort of a superstar at soccer. But to get them to have the superpower of secure attachment, it takes some pretty critical ingredients that are really about relationships. So it's about attuning to them or tuning in, especially when they're distressed. So when kids are frustrated, struggling, we need caregivers to tune in by kind of figuring out like, hey, they're struggling here, and then responding to that in a way where they feel like their needs are being met, that they feel emotionally secure. And what that ends up doing when you do that over and over time and repeated incidences of kids needing you is it sort of builds the foundation for that house that we just saw in the video. So secure attachment builds that foundation, sets kids up for great learning, brain development, relational health. It's really like it's a superpower for their entire life. And so that attunement is actually the critical ingredient for setting up secure attachment. And the practical stuff's important too. Driving them places, getting them to go and see friends. These are all really important, but the way we promote secure attachment is by promoting relational health by tuning into kids.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, you're also probably thinking, oh my gosh, I have to attune accurately 100% of the time and be this perfectly in-tune parent and meeting their needs 100% of the time. And that's an impossible task for anybody. So what we're talking about to get secure attachment relationships with our kids is not 100% of the time. We're talking just simply good enough parenting. And attachment research shows that good enough parenting to get secure attachment just needs to be in sync or attuned 30 to 50% of the time. So if you accurately attune and get it right, just that amount of time, you're on the road to security.
Okay, so just attune. What does that look like? What am I doing?
It's about, first of all, being able to see your child, see them accurately in terms of what cues are coming out. And it's not 100% of the time. It's more those times that Sherry was talking about, when they're stressed or overwhelmed, they're tired, they're hungry, they're sick, they're injured, they're angry, they're scared, all those big moments where they need you to emotionally regulate them. And to see that clearly, to be able to comfort, to understand, to soothe, and to reassure in those moments.
What about the video? Because I saw in the video what you're supposed to do is play a video game while your kid's beside you. Is that accurate? That is attunement. That is tuning into your Xbox.
Right,
Okay,
right.
fine.
That's misattunement. Yeah.
I get afraid because maybe it's because I'm a guy, I don't know. But there's this, well, don't coddle your kids. Don't be a helicopter parent. You don't want to do that. They got to find their own way. What's the difference? How do I gauge that one?
Yeah. I think, we talk so much about safety and security, but it's really a balancing act between the safety and the security and really fueling that up in our kids so that they can go off and explore. And exploration is the ability to go off and try new things that you may not know how to do and not do very well in the beginning, going to school, making friends, learning to ride a bike. Now think if you're coddling and being that bubble wrapping, nervous kind of parent that says, oh no, don't go out there, you might fall or you might fail. And the child doesn't get the experience to try these things, to build the skill, and to maybe even falter and build some resilience from that. And so it's kind of like when your toddler's first learning to walk and how you respond to them in that moment when they fall down. Do you go, oh no, you hurt yourself, let me scoop you back up? Or do you go, oh, you look like you're okay, let's put you back on your feet and keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I think we're trying to get kids actually test limits. That's actually how they learn about the world. What can I do? How far can I get? So they test limits, and part of our job as parents is to show them where the limits and the boundaries are. So we're talking about nurturance today, but limits are also a part of that. And so kids are going to go out and they're going to explore, and we're going to show them where the limits are, and then we're going to encourage them back into this safe place. That's that secure base, so that they can stretch a little bit further the next time and keep exploring their limits. So attachment is about this balance between creating a safe haven and encouraging exploration within the limits of what's appropriate developmentally or age-wise for our kids.
Well, even the two of you, when you talk about, okay, when their emotions are heightened. So when my kids' emotions are heightened, this is what doesn't happen. John doesn't come to me and say, I'm really furious. Papa, let's discuss my feelings right now and find a better road. Usually when he's mad, he says, it's your fault and it's you, and now I'm going to yell at you. So how do you get... Well, actually, just tell me, what are some bad habits, some bad attachment parenting habits? Let's list all the Dave things that I shouldn't do. What would you say those are?
Yeah, so I'll do a little summary of what are the good ones, just before we get to the bad ones. But, attuning, setting limits, making sure when we falter as parents, which we do all the time, we repair that with our kids. We say, you know what, I don't like how I manage that. Let's work that through. Can we start over? That's really helpful with teenagers especially. But the things that don't work for kids and often create these insecure attachment strategies are when kids get criticized, when we're a little bit more hostile with how we interact with them, where we kind of prioritize our needs ahead of their needs. So we sort of think, and I can give an example of this. I have one of my kids doesn't enjoy physical comfort when she's upset. And as an attachment theorist, that's pretty hard for me. And because I know that's really important. I could take offense to that. I could leave her on her own. But I actually know what I need to do in those moments is just be close and watch and wait. And I say to her, I'm here when you need me. And ultimately, she gets there, but she needs time and she needs space, and I need patience. And so secure attachment doesn't always look the same for every kiddo. Sometimes what it looks like is its own unique, they come out all unique, and you have to sort of adapt your strategy. But I don't want to reject in those moments by walking away and leaving her without an emotional caregiver. I want to stay close, and I want to pick up on her cues for when she's ready for either a conversation, a hug, or some moment together where we can connect.
Yeah, just to add on that, Sherry, I was thinking about our own triggers, being aware of our own triggers, because nothing is going to trigger us and any unresolved stuff that we have from our own childhood of unmet needs than when our children bring their own attachment needs to us. And so I often call them our blind spots, because we can have our intellectual awareness, but when emotions are activated or their attachment system's activated and it activates us, our old baggage can come up in those moments, and we find ourselves responding with disproportionate fear or anger or resentment in response to our children's needs. So blind spots are really something we need to be aware of and then work on.
Well, you brought a video. We have a video to talk a little bit about this. Peter calls it the gift that keeps on giving. So whatever it was that you grew up with, when your kids trigger it, suddenly you're doing things maybe that aren't the most helpful. Well, let's watch the video and see what they say.
Parents. Throughout history, we've struggled to get it right. We hope we won't pass on our emotional issues to our kids, and we swear we won't make the same mistakes our parents did. We all have great intentions, but something seems to get in the way. Let's look at what that might be. At Circle of Security Parenting, we believe that being emotionally available to our children in their needs is the key to doing our best as parents. We call emotional availability being with. It means teaching emotional intelligence by being with our children in all their feelings, like sadness, joy, anger, curiosity, pain, frustration, excitement, and so on. Being with children helps them understand, trust, and move on from feelings. And knowing someone is with them in their feelings helps children feel less overwhelmed and more secure. Decades of research backs this up. For parents, some of this comes easily, but other times our children express emotions that make us uncomfortable, so we pull away or try to overrule their feelings, which leaves them on their own. We do this because our children's feelings can trigger strong emotions in us. We think of it like this: our history during childhood of how core people responded to our different emotions creates the background music for how we experience our children's feelings. Let's look at this example. This girl and her father have been enjoying time together in the park, but suddenly aware of the time, Dad says, "We need to go." When the girl hears this, she starts crying and gets increasingly angry. All at once, the dad's background music changes. The background music that is playing for the father right now, we call shark music. As it turns out, the dad's own mother was uncomfortable with loud displays of emotion, and she didn't know how to handle them. So throughout his childhood, she repeatedly told her son it was pathetic to cry, and she never ever asked him about his feelings of sadness or anger. His ability to deal with his daughter's emotion now is greatly affected by the experience with his mother then. Shark music, we're rarely aware it's playing, but it's our past experiences telling us to be afraid of or uncomfortable with a feeling or need that is actually safe. When our shark music limits our ability to respond to these feelings, our children learn to hide or feel ashamed of them. This is a problem because we're teaching our children to fear emotions that are actually both safe and essential in life. Most of us experience shark music with one emotion or another, and it's different for everyone. But whenever it is triggered, our ability to respond to our children's needs is limited. The good news is, by simply calling it by name and reflecting on what our children need in the moment, we can turn down our shark music. This is so important because if we can learn to manage our history of negative experiences and perceptions, we can respond to the truth of our child's current situation and be with them in it. Ultimately, this will help our children grow up with a better ability to understand and share more of the emotions they experience. There's no escaping it. Strong feelings are a challenge to manage as parents, but our children always benefit when we have an accurate response to what's happening, rather than reacting to the shark music we're bringing into the relationship. Remember, there's no such thing as perfect parenting, and blame never helped anyone feel more secure. That includes blaming ourselves. But the more often we can identify our shark music, the better off our children will be.
I just thought of one.
What?
Can I tell you my shark
Yeah.
music? Because was it Pete or George talked about the strike? So here's my deal. My dad was always about, you got to work hard. You got to work hard. If you're not working hard, you got to work hard. And my son cannot have enough of this strike. He is so excited about this strike. He wishes this labor unrest would last for years. He hopes that he's like, I believe in everything they're fighting for as long as they keep fighting. That's all that matters. And my reaction is, you should want to go to school. You should be interested in your work. You should be studying. You should be making sure you're on. And he hates it. And I get so frustrated because he doesn't want to do his work during the strike. So could you call him and tell him he's wrong?
Yeah, okay, I have an example just like that I've had lots of cases like that have come into my office. And I love that term shark music because it makes that implicit, unconscious stuff of our own old stuff come to the surface like it did for you, and you explicitly recognize, this is some of my old stuff coming in, and you can just give it the space over here and then see your child clearly. I had one case where this parent brought their child into my office, and I was already seeing them, but this recent episode happened where she was in grade 11 and she'd experimented with alcohol, got drunk, got sick, and these things happen. It's sort of normative, rebellious experimentation of adolescence. But this parent's response, I said, how did you respond? Like, you got to deal with this. This is the session for today, and you've got to work with her. And I'm thinking, well, how did you respond? What's happening here? And they said, well, it scares the heck out of me, and I'm just so angry, and it's just so shameful. And I said, whoa, okay. So it became really clear for me that this wasn't an issue to work on with the child, but this was some shark music coming up, and what is happening here? And so we ended up booking a session to work with the parent. And what came out was that they had a sibling who was an addict, and they went right to the fear and all the way down to the road of seeing their daughter after this one falter experience, chalk it up, to seeing her become this addicted sibling. And so really working with them to clear away that shark music so they could respond in a sensitive, attuned way to build resiliency from that experience with their kid.
And that's just the way that goes. Well, okay, so Sherry, here's another one. I sometimes will, and this works really well, when I'm sitting beside Blythe, when I read this stuff, if I somehow can torque it so that it's her fault. Yeah. Is that Paul? So like, I'd like to say it's your attachment issues. Look at you've done to these children. Is that a positive thing to do?
I don't think I'm allowed to answer that question here. Is she here?
Not without charging me, I suppose, yeah.
I think that, it brings up a good point, right? We're one attachment figure for kids, and they have form attachment relationships with each parent. Mm-hmm. And they learn to consolidate that over time, right, into this way of relating to people. And the way they'll relate is based on how we parented them. Which is based on how we were parented. And really that's what this video is about. And I think your epiphany right now, which I'm sure everyone here enjoyed hearing about, I think one of the things that people can take away from today is just reflecting on like, what's my shark music, And as you said, how can I push that out of the way so that I can engage in a more meaningful relationship with one of my kids? And that's really what we'd want for folks to take away from today.
And I just wanted to add, that is what makes Lionheart therapists and so effective, is because we work with the entire family. So other therapy modalities might be drop your child off and, oh yeah, they're the problem, this is what's happening here. But what we start to see is that there's layers in history and this intergenerational transmission that's often occurring. So we'll work with the family and use the attachment relationship to heal the whole system.
Right.
Set it right on track. Yeah.
And actually, in fairness to Blythe, she's doing her best. No, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. But what is helpful, though, is to go, oh, I'm acting this way because of something else, not because of this. And then that helps me even talk to Blythe and say, okay, the reaction I'm having is probably not because of her or because of the kids, but it's partly this other shark music that's happening. And that's important. It gives us a way in that's not blamey or attacky, which is much wiser.
And I'll just add, I mentioned I had one kiddo.
Yep.
My own fear of rejection could have gotten in the way for a kid who doesn't want to have physical connection and heightened distress. I could take that, feel the rejection, and walk away and leave them on their own to manage. But I have to override that fear and override that shark music and just stay in the space and wait until they're ready for us to be able to connect. So we are constantly overriding shark music, whether we're doing it consciously or unconsciously, but being reflective about it is what's going to happen, like what's going to create a better connection with our kids.
That just made me think about something, and that is about your own awareness and staying regulated and recognizing that in your relationship with your child, they need you to help regulate them. So it means checking yourself and growing the big shoulders to be the bigger, stronger, wiser in the relationship, always.
It's easy for me to justify my anger or obviously this situation, why wouldn't I be frustrated? But it's much harder for me to go, oh, wait a minute, it's my job to be the adult in the room. Which is really obnoxious, by the way.
Too much.
But it's really, really helpful. We can't go today without talking technology. So I want to talk about tech and kids and attachment. Sherry, why don't you start with a look at the parents, first of all?
Yeah, so some of what we study in our group is this concept called technoference. It's technology and interference smashed into a word. And what we're really interested in is how technology interrupts opportunities to pick up on the cues and signals from our kids. And you can imagine when there's a device in front of you, it's really hard to actually see what kids need in that moment because the device is usually capturing our attention. They are designed to do just that. And I mean, I could poll the audience, how many people are sort of worried about their kids' screen use, generally? Yeah, pretty decent amount. But when we ask kids, how worried are you about your parents' screen use? About 70% of them say, like, big time, because their screen use is interrupting our opportunities to connect. So it kind of works both ways. We're worried about the kids' screen use, and they're worried about our use, and they're actually saying that the devices are interrupting us. So what we know from the research is that it's okay to get on your phone and, you're organizing a play date, you're checking the hockey schedule, you want to know what time piano lessons are. That's functional parts of parenting. It's when we get really absorbed into our phone, usually when you start doing this is a good sign you're absorbed, you're scrolling. That's when kids really feel the impact of that disconnection.
Yeah, I just have a practical tip. I just remember when our kids were still living at home and they would walk past the living room or the kitchen or even come into our room at night when they've come home from a night out of being with their friends. And if I had a phone or an iPad or a laptop nearby, I'd quickly tuck it underneath my covers and be like, oh, I'm just totally available. I was waiting for you to walk in, and how's it going? How was your evening? No screen time here, so that they knew that 100% of me was right there for them. And so that was put away.
It reminds me of my grandpa blowing the cigarette smoke out too. Same idea.
Same. Nowhere here. Yeah.
Okay. What would you suggest then? You talk about attunement. What would you suggest, either of you, that I can start doing today, tomorrow, and the next day to make me more attuned to my kids, to make sure that that attachment's still there?
You want me to go first? Yeah. Well, so I think it takes some conscious reflection. First we talked about shark music. The second thing is, how can I sort of meaningfully connect with them? It looks different based on the age of the child. So for the younger kids, that's just getting down and playing with them and following their lead. For middle school kids, it's a little bit more of like going out, doing stuff together. When they're upset, making sure you're really tuning in and being there to help them. And for teenagers, it can look even different, right? One of my teenagers, I always know he's upset because he's like, "Can we go to A&W?" And I'm like, "Okay, yep, let's go to A&W." And on that walk there, I'll ask, "How was your day? What's going on? Tell me a little bit about it." It's a little easier for him to talk if we've got somewhere to go together, you know, and I'm not sitting eye to eye pressuring him to tell me about these deep internal feelings. So I think you have to get creative in how you connect with kids and meet them where they're at. So, and know that like you're gonna put in this effort. It's gonna take a little while for kids to match it. Just keep persevering and keep trying to like create these points of connection, because it'll make a difference in the long run, but it'll take a little while for the two of you to get started and make sure you're on a path where it works for both of you.
Tell me a bit about why. It's not just to get through the teen years, is it? There's more, there's a long-term road we're building here. You want to jump in? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Attachment starts as this relationship in early childhood, but eventually it becomes internalized by that child, and it becomes the lens in which they see themselves and how they approach the world and other relationships. It becomes that prototype that becomes internalized in them. And so about 30 years ago, I was doing my graduate research on the long-term effects of early attachment. And sure enough, it showed that attachment security was related to the quality of your emotional regulation later on. So how stable you are, your psychological health, your social skills, so how you relate to other people, how likable you are, the quality of your relationships. It relates to your cognitive abilities, actually, because if you're that revved up and anxious, feeling insecure, you're not going to be able to focus and absorb as much and learn as much and take chances to explore. So it affects that, and even your physical health. It's just that resiliency, underlying foundation of everything.
If I could say one more tip, because I'm going to get back to technology for a sec. If you can do some device-free time, and I know that's hard for all of us, you can just put them away. The other day, I had 4 teenagers in my house, and I said, I'll give $20 to the person who can last long for not touching their phone. We had them in the corner. They didn't last 10 minutes. So, you know, and so I said, guys, we got to talk about this, you know. So part of it is like, you know, it's a little uncomfortable sometimes when we say, okay, we're going to have this device-free family time or device-free connection time. It's worth it in the long run, and we've got to attune kids to like putting the phones away, and we say like, you need human-to-human connection to thrive. And so we actually have to model that as parents, and I don't encourage paying off every child to do that, but it was an interesting sort of, you know, observational test of what these kids had capacity for. But we need to be the ones to model that we've got to have some time off devices. So I often say we need to disconnect from devices so we can connect with each other.
I think part of the Lionheart Foundation funding is $20 for any kid who doesn't touch the phone. We're just going to go out and deal with that.
Yeah, that's where it's going.
Before I let you go, the question I started with, where I feel like I could just feel bad and realize I haven't done it right, I don't know what I'm doing, and clearly there's just sharks everywhere. What do I need to remember leaving here today? And I'll start with you, Rochelle, and let Sherry in.
You can remember everything that you heard today and know that there's plenty of resources available in books format, in a lot of these YouTubes, just even having that self-reflection and awareness when we start what we started talking about today about where some of your blind spots are and triggers from your own childhood of unmet needs, and to work on them. First of all, make them explicit like you were, and maybe even reach out for help or use Lionheart as a referral to get some information about where you can start to address some of these things. Just that might take a little bit of clearing.
Yeah, and with some of your older kids, I think just strike up a conversation about it, you know? Say, I went to this really interesting lunch and learn today, and it was about the idea of connecting, and it made me really think about it. And I'd like to find a way for us to have a bit more points of connection. What does that look like to you? How would that work for you in a way that would meet your needs, right? Because it's really got to be about meeting their needs. And see what they have to say, you know, and you can always make a plan to work on it together. You might surprise them, and they might surprise you too as part of the conversation and wanting that connection as well.
And if all else fails, all of us, we're leaving here and we're going to the A&W with you. So we're going to get the whole thing squared up. What a couple of, we're lucky that you're both here helping our family so much. Can we thank Ray and Sherry so much? Let's hear it for them. Thank you both. Just great. Thank you. That's so good.